Thanks. And then on the situation in Syria, are there any DoD personnel in any capacity currently in Damascus or any other places where the prisons, involved in any sort of search for Austin Tice or anyone else like that?
So there are no DoD personnel. There are only DoD personnel in the areas that we operate, which are part of the continued de-ISIS mission. In terms of Austin Tice, I don't have a U.S. role or military assistance to speak to today. Of course, the ongoing developments in Syria could present an opportunity for us to get more information. What we want to see is him returned home, reunited with his family. But I don't have anything to speak to in terms of a U.S. military role when it comes to Austin Tice.
So as the situation evolves, then there could be a role for U.S. or DoD personnel to go in and assist with those.
Yeah, today I just don't have any role to speak to, though. Yes.
Thank you, Sabina. On recent Secretary's trip to Japan, could you please elaborate on the development related to discussions on upgrading the alliance command and control? And also, before the presidential transition, does the Pentagon plan to announce any specific direction or decisions on U.S.-Japan command and control issues?
I can't speak to future announcements, even though, we still have a few weeks to go before the transition takes place. I'm not aware of any more announcements coming, but I'm not going to rule it out either. In terms of the relationship with Japan and the upgrading of those headquarters, I think you've heard us speak to that and what we're going to do. But that is a phased approach. It's it's going to take some time to continue to upgrade that Joint Force headquarters. Jeff.
Thanks very much. Two questions. One, with the airstrikes that CENTCOM and the U.S. carried out against ISIS in central Syria on Sunday, is there any updated assessment of who you hit, what you hit, how badly damaged ISIS is as a result? And then some Syrian Kurdish officials have said that since Golani, HTS, and the other rebels began their campaign and ultimately ousted the Assad regime, that they have seen an uptick in ISIS activity and in ISIS attacks and plotting. What is the Pentagon seeing from ISIS right now as you fear that it will try to take advantage of this situation?
Well, that is what we've been saying, is that we are concerned that ISIS would use the dynamics and the ongoing situation on the ground in Syria to try and take advantage of that, which is why we did what we did on Sunday. We at approximately 5 locations, we had 75 targets with a number of different airframes and platforms to take out capabilities that ISIS would use, or we thought they could use, to try and take advantage of the situation that's unfolding on the ground. In terms of ISIS plots and planning, ISIS still remains a threat. I don't have anything to speak to in terms of an uptick of attacks, but you saw us take pretty significant action over the weekend, and we've been doing that, pre the fall of the Assad regime, and we're going to continue to do that as Syria goes through this transition political process.
Is the assessment then that those airstrikes have in fact deterred ISIS, at least since Sunday, of carrying out more attacks?
Well, again, we're taking capability off the map for them. So, what they choose to do, that's for them to speak to. I can only speak to what we did. And in terms of, I'm sorry, and you asked about our ongoing assessment of how successful those strikes are. Our initial assessment is that they were successful and that, we did kill a number of operatives, ISIS operatives in the desert, but it's going to take some time to get you more fidelity on the strikes. Sure.
Follow up on that. Mm-hmm. What is the U.S. military doing to protect the SDF from Turkey and Turkish airstrikes?
So continuing to have conversations with our counterparts. And while I won't speak to any hypotheticals, we're going to continue to engage the SDF. We have ways to deconflict, of course. And the Secretary spoke recently to his Turkish counterpart, and I'm sure he'll continue to do so.
One other thing on Congressman Jeff Van Drew. He says that the drones in New Jersey should be shot down. Is there any reason not to bring down these drones to figure out what they are?
Well, that's a decision for local law enforcement. If a drone or any activity is a threat to military installations, they always have the right for self-defense, and they can engage to respond to any potential risks. But with some of the drone activity or activities that you're referring to, there was not a threat to any military installation, so they didn't feel the need to engage. Yes, in the back.
On those airstrikes over the weekend, categorically then you're saying that the U.S. only targeted ISIS military assets. You did not target any Syrian military assets.
We target the strikes over the weekend that happened on December 8th, targeted an ISIS camps and leaders that were operating in the Badia Desert.
And since then, you're not targeting Syria.
I have no other strikes to speak to today.
What support is the Pentagon giving to Israel as it targets Syrian military assets and invades Syria?
So I would let Israel speak to its own operations. I think what you're referring to is the operations that they're conducting to eliminate what are threats to their security, which include, chemical weapons, missiles, rockets that were that the Assad regime controlled. They have legitimate security concerns. They have a right to self-defense. It is their own operations.
Support are you giving them?
We're not giving them any support when it comes to those operations.
There's one thing you keep talking about. There's no change in the U.S. force posture in Syria. Under what legal authority, either international or national, does the U.S. have a force posture in Syria?
I'm sorry, what is the question?
Under what legal authority, either national or international, does the U.S. have a troop presence, a force posture?
We've had a troop presence and arrangement there for a number of years. Again, we continue to operate with the SDF to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS. That has been our mission. That has been our mission from the very beginning. Jared.
Again, on the Syria situation, there are some reports that Turkey-backed rebels near Manbij and Kobani have been still launching artillery and drone attacks in the area. And I think Raqqa today was hit with what the SDF said was a Turkish-backed drone attack. This is after the U.S. brokered the SDF withdrawal from Manbij, which the SDF is calling a ceasefire. How can the department ensure stability in eastern Syria and maintain security at the ISIS prisons if the department can't defend the SDF from SNA attack, or can they? Is OIR authorized to do that, or is this left up to the State Department right now?
The OIR mission and scope still remains to defeat ISIS mission. That is in coordination and working with the SDF on the ground, whether it be partnered raids or other engagement activities. It is a partnership with the S to ensure that ISIS can no longer resurge to the threat that they were many, many years ago. Again, and I think I've answered this, but we're going to continue to engage with our Turkish counterparts. We're going to continue to work so that there is deconfliction. At the end of the day, though, the SDF is can speak to their own operations on where they're operating. We can only speak to our partnership with them when it comes to the de-ISIS mission.
And if I could just follow up, I'm wondering if you can confirm something we reported earlier, that a senior U.S. official told the SDF that the U.S. military cannot protect them if they do not withdraw from Manbij and relocate east of the Euphrates, that the U.S. cannot protect them in that area if they don't do that. Is that true?
Yeah, I can't confirm that. I'm not going to speak to an anonymous official's quote. Tara, and then I'll come to you.
Thanks. I just wanted to circle back to the Oreshnik missile.
Sure.
When U.S. officials discussed the potential launching earlier today, and you just discussed it at the podium, is that based on an intelligence assessment, or what's prompting kind of this early warning?
Yeah, this was based on an intelligence assessment that it's possible that Russia could use this Oreshnik missile in the coming days, and so they have used this type of capability before. I know you reported on it then. Again, I think the point of us getting out this information is to also ensure that this is not going to be a silver bullet change to the battlefield. The war is going to continue, and our support for Ukraine is going to continue.
Does that intelligence include any assessment of what targets it might strike?
I'm just not going to be able to give you more details on that. Yes.
So commercial satellite photos came out yesterday showing that the Russian Navy vacated their base in Tartus, in addition to their military air base further south. Is there any concern from the building or from y'all that the Russian Navy and the Russian military writ large are going to develop some type of basing rights for those locations? Everything looked pretty intact when they left. Is there a concern that there's going to be a relationship with the Russian Ministry of Defense and the new regime in Syria going forward from the Pentagon?
Well, we don't know what the new path forward in Syria looks like. In terms of Russian assets, they just had one of their key political allies ousted. So their presence there, political prowess within the Middle East region is significantly reduced now that Assad is gone. We're seeing Russia consolidate assets, and to your point, some naval vessels leaving that area. Again, it remains to be seen what the path forward is in Syria. That is up for the Syrian people to decide. So I can't speak for what future relationships could look like, only to say that, with the fall of Assad, and Russia continue to be pulled into this, continuing their fight in Ukraine. I mean, they are clearly at a loss, and they are clearly expending more material, more capability, more people on the battlefield, and losing their stronghold, which you just saw happen with the Assad regime falling.
But those facilities weren't sabotaged. Those airfields can be used. Those ports can be used. If it was a full exit, you would expect that you'd want to deny follow-on forces to be able to use those.
Well, you'd have to ask the Russians why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, what we're seeing is a consolidation of assets, including, some Russian forces leaving Syria. What they're doing with their facilities and bases, that's for them to speak to. Yeah.
Thank you, madam. Two quick questions. One, this is a Human Rights Week in Washington or around the globe. When U.S. military withdrew from Afghanistan, some agreements were made, promises were made by the Taliban to the U.S. and to the U.S. military, but they are not standing up because especially against women. What role do you think U.S. military is still playing there in Afghanistan to protect those behind, especially women?
I think it's pretty clear we don't have a military role in Afghanistan anymore.
And second, if there is any role, U.S. military role in Bangladesh?
I mean, other than, basic mill-to-mill ties. I mean, is there something more specific that you're asking about?
No, because there are atrocities going on against minorities in Bangladesh, and its situation is very bad over there right now this time.
Yeah, that would be, that's more of diplomatic conversations and engagements than mill-to-mill channels. I do have one question on the phone, and then I'm happy to come back in the room right here. Howard Altman, Warzone.
Thanks, appreciate it. Just want to go back to the comments by Congressman Van Drew. Has the Pentagon spoken to him, or has any plans to speak to him? And is there any sense from the Pentagon that there's a frenzy, a hysteria here that's overblown in terms of some of these sightings? And has the Pentagon assessed any of them to be confirmed to be drones as opposed to aircraft or something else?
Thanks, Howard, for the question. Local law enforcement, FBI is conducting an investigation and looking into this. I mean, there's initial assessments are that these are drones and potentially, could be small airplanes. It could be a number of things that people are seeing and reporting. But again, that's, for the investigation to uncover. And so I just can't speak to that more. In terms of, a frenzy, I think it's completely right that people report these sightings and that there is an investigation into, what they are seeing. But I think what's also important to remember is that at no time were our military installations or our people ever under any threat. And if they were, of course, the base commanders have the ability to engage these drones if they do pose a threat. Can I just go one here? And
the drone issue. If you don't know what they are, how can you say they're not a foreign adversary?
Our initial assessment is that this is not the work of a foreign adversary or a foreign entity. That is our initial assessment. Yes, one more.
I want to ask on the Osprey, which was reportedly grounded in the wake of a security concern. Could you share some latest development on the aircraft? And I'm also wondering how you are communicating with allies such as Japan, which has not resumed its operation.
So I think you've seen, each service makes their own decisions on when it comes to the Osprey. We remain, as a department, committed to ensuring the safety of our aircraft and our platforms. And we continue to underscore that value at every single level. I think, the Navy, the Air Force, and Marine Corps all make different decisions about the Osprey, and some, have implemented an operational pause. For more information on that, I'd refer you to each service. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.